Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to Google. It's great to have their support in 2025. I'm Riley Beveirdge, and I think for the first time in Gettable history, we have executed a trade of our own because we have traded out Kaltumi, and this week we've brought in Josh Gabelich. Josh, thanks for coming on Gettable.
Hello, Riles. Short-term deals don't exist in footy, but this is very much a loan operation.
It is certainly a loan operation. All right, Josh, let's get to the big story of the week. And it's clearly Wanganeen-Milera and what's playing out with his future after his superstar performance on the weekend. The goal after the Sirens takes St Kilda to that remarkable victory over Melbourne. There it is, just there. It's the belief now, Josh, of several clubs I've spoken to this week that Nazire is worth $2 million per year and he will become potentially footy's first $2 million player. Adelaide and Port Adelaide have both front-ended their long-term contracts. We've reported that in the past. The front-ended part of those deals are tipped to be in that $2 million region, but I think many clubs now believe that Nazire is worth $2 million per year over the life of that deal. And the prevailing view now, I think, is that St Kilda, who've been short of that $2 million mark, will need to get to that if they're a chance of keeping Nazire at the football club. There's a thought that if he was to leave, Port Adelaide would have its noses in front ahead of Adelaide just at the moment. I think the reason for that is because Port has gone all in on Nazire Wanganeen-Milera now. And I think the widespread belief is that if the bidding war was to hit that $2 million per season mark, Port Adelaide would be the club that is capable of backing that thinking up with action and potentially getting to $2 million over the life of a deal. Now, Nazire's St Kilda teammates still don't know what he's doing. Port Adelaide and Adelaide don't know what he's doing. St Kilda doesn't know what he's doing. He's completely left everyone in the dark there. He's played this situation to perfection, but clearly the market's jumped this year. And there's a new economy, and that's because of the new CBA, and prices have gone up, and Nazire leads the way within that. I mean, he's the Iceman, Josh. We've spoken about this in the past. The way he's played his contract discussions this year, he's been the Iceman right the way through the year. On that front, he's the Iceman on the field. We saw that in the weekend, 34 disposals, 4 goals, 6 clearances, 6 inside 50s, 9 score involvements, and the way he kicked those last 2 goals were just remarkable. It's the best contract year since Dusty in 2017, and I think that's now the blueprint in the sense of when potentially, if he is to stay, the latest possible opportunity for him would be to stay, because Dusty didn't re-sign at Richmond until August 31, and clearly this next month's going to be massive for Nazire and St Kilda.
Dusty feels like the right comparison, Riles, given what he's doing this year with that contract hanging over his head at the age of 22. No matter where he plays in 2026, if it's not at St Kilda, if he goes home to South Australia, what are the ramifications for the Saints, aside from just losing one of the hottest players in the competition?
Yeah, well, I wonder if there's a domino effect with the TDK situation now as well. I think Carlton's only remaining chance of keeping Tom De Koning now is if Nazire Wanganeen-Milera leaves St Kilda. Rather than creating more cash for Tom De Koning at the St Kilda, I just wonder if it changes the situation of Tom De Koning's thinking and going to a Nazire-less St Kilda, becoming the main man, all the pressure suddenly gets heaped on your shoulders. I think now the belief at Carlton is that that could potentially be the only way they keep Tom De Koning. I mean, for a long time, the feeling has been that Tom De Koning is as good as gone to St Kilda. I think that's now their only hope of potentially retaining him. I do want to bring up this though, Josh, because that 2021 draft is looking remarkable. Let's take a look at it, and the first 11 picks in particular. I think now we've got 3 of the best players in the competition within this draft. So Sam Darcy, who was pick 2, Nick Dacos, who was pick 3, and then Nazire Wanganeen-Milera, who was pick 11. And then you can see down the bottom there some of the players that weren't even in that top 10, 11 selections, just how good they've gone on to be.
Well, you could quickly mount a case that this is the best draft class ever. Now, they haven't reached 100 games yet, so I think we're jumping to conclusions, but you're right. 3 of the top 5 players in the comp are on that list right now. And if they're not in the top 5, they're in the top 10. I mean, you look at what Nick Dacos is doing this year, clearly the Brownlow medal favourite right now. Nazire looks set for his first All-Australian blazer. And Sam Darcy's probably played the best footy of all of them. I know he missed a lot of footy with that knee. And Finn Callahan's mounting a late case to be an All-Australian. It's staggering to think that Nazire was taken at pick 11. And Chris Toche, the late recruiter, gets a lot of credit for Cal Wilkie and that pick during his time at St Kilda and what he's done off the rookie list. But he campaigned hard in 2021 for Nazire. There was a lot of debate about pick 11 and clearly got that one right.
He certainly did. All right, there's plenty more still to come on Gettable today. We're going to go into the latest on Jack Silvani and the potential ramifications and what that means for Collingwood. Charlie Curnow's future will also be on the agenda. But you mentioned Finn Callahan. The man behind that selection at pick 3 in the 2021 draft was Adrian Caruso, the Greater Western Sydney National Recruiting Manager, and he's about to join us on Gettable right now. All right, we are thrilled to be joined here on the Gettable desk by one of our favourites on the show. It is GWS Giants Head of Talent, Adrian Caruso. Adrian, thanks for coming on the show again.
No worries, great to be here again.
Adrian, you going?
I know you still keep a very close eye over the draft. And how have you seen the crop this year? Because it's been a bit of a different year for the draftees, but the champs are done now. How have you seen the strength of the group?
I think probably consistent with what most people are saying. It doesn't look like it's an overly deep crop. We're obviously, from our point of view, we look for specific things and we're confident we'll have enough names on our board that we'll be happy to draft. But I think when you look at it across the board, the fact that there's so many father-son, NGA and Northern Academy players sort of does bolster what the crop looks like overall. But I think if you compare it to last year in particular, the top end as well as the overall depth does look a bit down.
I reckon we had you on the show earlier than this last year and you said you had Sam Lawler right in the mix as your pick one. I think it was before he'd made his bolt in the back half of the campaign. Who do you say is the front runners for that number one post this year? We had the 7 names on the board a couple of weeks ago. Did you think anyone we missed from that crop?
I don't think there's anyone you missed. I think if I had to pick out of that group, I think Willem Dersma's had a fantastic year and has a lot to provide as an early selection, just given his versatility and his athletic package. And Dyson Sharp's probably the other one that I think's just been so ultra consistent in terms of what he was able to produce at nationals level. So they're probably the two. But 3 years ago when we picked Cads at number one, I don't think anyone at this point of the year probably saw him in that mix. So I think there's always a lot that can play out from now on.
Adrian, never been more focused on the Northern Academies, clubs like St Kilda campaigning behind the scenes for changes. How have you viewed the discourse around the Northern Academies this year?
Well, it's really just noise to us, Josh. We know they're doing a great job and we know that the purpose that they serve is to provide opportunities for those players in Queensland and New South Wales and to grow the talent pool. And if those players from Queensland and New South Wales weren't in this year's pool, I think everyone would be looking at it with, pretty worried about where it was at. So from our perspective, they're doing a great job. We want to get more Western Sydney players into the system. We only have 2 in our club. So without a Northern Academy, it's hard for those players to know that they can come through the system and the pathway and end up at the Giants. I think, the more local heroes, the better. And we know that, that's where it needs to get to over time.
We've heard so much about the Suns and the Lions and their prospects heading into this year's draft. We've heard a lot about the Sydney Swans Academy boys as well. Haven't heard as much about the Giants. What can you tell us about your Academy boys?
Yeah, we probably don't have the top end, but I think what we saw this year was, given we didn't have any boys in the Allies squad at the start of the year, but then by the time the Allies rolled around, we had 5 players in that squad. So I think it was a credit to the job that Ty Kennelly and Jason Saddington did in our academy early in the year to get those guys up to the level. I think what we showed last year with Logan Smith and Joey Delana is that late in the draft or as rookies, that's fantastic for us to promote those guys and get them onto our list. So out of the players who, played for the Allies this year, Riley Hamilton was one who probably stood out as, performing at the level. Played all the games and kicked some goals. He's probably the most likely of those boys to get on a list this year. But those other boys, Tallis McMillan, Jim Houston, Brody Kane, they all played footy at the level and, it was great for them to get exposed and play against the best.
Been a raft of re-signings this year and it really started with Finn Callaghan at the start of the year signing that 4-year deal amid some pretty significant interest. Aaron Cadman, Xavier O'Halloran, these are guys that would have had interest as well, but you've got them locked away. There's been a few more within that. How important was getting Finn done so early in the year to what's followed and the amount of confidence that the club's taken from that early re-signing of Finn Callaghan?
Yeah, it was massive. Obviously when we drafted Finn, we knew that he wasn't going to come in and dominate from day one. So our plan was always more build him up for the first 3 or 4 years and then hopefully that years 5 to 8 is where he's ready to explode. And so, we definitely didn't want to lose him and our priority at the start of the year was to get in front of him and make him realise that the Giants was where he wanted to be. And, he's been fantastic. He loves Sydney, he loves the club, and he wanted to get it done as much as we wanted to get it done. And it was pretty easy in the end to knock it over. And obviously he's gone from strength to strength in the back end of this year, which is great. And then obviously once he re-signed, it was okay, well, let's move on to the next batch of Aaron Cadman, Darcy Jones and these sort of guys, whether they're out at the end of next year didn't worry us. We know they're going to be long-term players for the club. And then O'Halloran and Brown were probably the 2 this year that we knew that we wanted to knock over and hopefully there's not many left now.
One of the guys that is left is Leckerli, and clearly he's got some interest in Victoria from St Kilda most notably. You've got the 2-year deal on the table for him. Where does it sit for him at the moment?
Yeah, I think it sits in the fact that he's out there playing footy and trying to help us win a flag. That's where he's at the moment. From our conversations with his manager, and those conversations are open and pretty transparent in terms of where things sit. His focus is on footy. He's obviously got the contract stuff that he's going to have to weigh up. As with our guys, every year we never put pressure on them to make a decision. They've got to work through all the different factors that they need to consider when they're making these big decisions. And we'd love to retain Leck. We've put 4 years into him, and he's had his best year this year that he's had at AFL level. But we understand where things sit.
Talk us through the retention of Xavier O'Halloran, because we know the interest from the Western Bulldogs last October, went down at deadline day. You kept him in the end. You've now locked him away for 3 more years. What's changed?
Well, midfield opportunity is definitely one thing that's probably given him the chance to show what he's capable of. And when we drafted him, it was 7 years ago, everyone probably forgets, but some of his best footy that year was played in the midfield. He went to the championships for Vic Metro, had to play more of a role forward, which made us think, okay, well, he could play forward, he could play a bit of wing, he could play a bit of mid, but the midfield opportunities just weren't there for him in previous years. Now, circumstances this year with Cornelio and Kelly being injured and us wanting to take Bedford out of the midfield, the opportunity presented, he went and grabbed it. And he's gone from a player that might have been seen as a fringe player and someone who might be on 1 or 2 year deals. Well, now he's gone and got himself a 3 year deal. But it's a credit to him for the work that he's put in on his game and the fact that he's wanted to come in and play the role to help complement Tom Green and Finn Callahan in particular in that midfield.
Now, Max Grishevsky's a name that just keeps bubbling away. Scotty Lucas was on this show 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said he takes so many calls about Max. Has that got back to you?
Well, I watched the show, so I saw it firsthand. I mean, we're wrapped with where Max is at as a player. Like, obviously, he's contracted, and as a 3rd year key forward, he's kicking bags in the VFL, and he's playing his role and doing what the coaches ask. So we're really happy with where things are at with him, and that's probably where it ends.
Jacob Ware, another one out of contract and a free agent as well. And Wade Dirksen, someone who had some interest from Melbourne last year, but you held him to his contract. They're both out of contract at the end of this season. I mean, where does it sit for those two?
I think similar to Leck, we're having those constant conversations with their managers. And we've all got great relationships. We know where things are at. There's a lot to play out still in the back end of the year. Obviously, Wade, now he's out injured. He's going to miss the rest of the year, which is disappointing because he's been such a great performer for us at VFL level and really held us up down back there. And Jacob's been a fantastic servant for 5 years and comes in when he's called on, plays his role, and he's a loved member of the footy club. But those guys, as always, we have players who are of interest to other clubs, and they might be gathering that interest at the moment, and they've got a decision to make.
It never stops, and we spoke about Aaron Cadman, the importance of getting him locked away a year ahead of his contract season in 2026. How early do you look to get guys like Jack Buckley, who's a free agent next year, locked away, and also James Leake, who's clearly going to have the pull of Tasmania when they enter the competition in the coming seasons?
Yeah, I mean, we won't take the eye off the ball in terms of we've got to get this year sorted, and whether that means Leck or Jacob Ware or what our draft strategy is, our priority is still this year. But as we've shown with Cadman, Jones, Connor Iden, we want to knock these guys over early. If we know we want to retain them, we want to move on to that batch, because next year we do have a lot of guys who are coming out, and we've knocked 5 or 6 of them off already, and those guys that you mentioned will be sort of next cab off the rank in terms of starting those discussions with their managers.
Phoenix Gothard was a big surprise a few years ago. I know you really rate him. We haven't seen him play yet at AFL level. Had a lot of issues with his body. How's his development going in his 2nd year?
Yeah, well, it's been a pretty interrupted 2nd year again. Like last year, he had glandular and some other sort of stress issues, whereas this year it's been more a finger, a groin, now he's carrying an ankle. So it's just little niggles along the way. He had a really strong game last week for us in the VFL against Essendon. It's probably his best game that he's played for the club. So hopefully that's something for him to build off. But I think when we draft, we don't draft players to impact in year 1 and year 2. Unlike other clubs, we're very much draft and develop, give them that time in the VFL so that when they do get called upon, they're ready to go. And hopefully Phoenix can hit that point next year where he is, in contention for regular senior footy. But I think as we've seen with guys like Rouston and Angwin and McMullen and Fonte, it's not until year 2, 3, 4 that our draftees really start to blossom. You know, we don't have many holes in our best side, and hopefully that means that, you know, when Phoenix does come in, he's ready to go.
Jake Stringer was a big deadline day deal. He's really starting to deliver. We're getting to the business end of the season. How excited are you with what he's producing?
Oh, it's fun to watch. You know, this is what we got him for. And I think Kingers is on record as saying it's not just the goals. Like, everyone looks at the goals and the big moments that he's had, which is fantastic, but it's the selfless work that he's doing. It's the way he's prepared himself to get himself, you know, in this shape. So we're really happy with how he's going, but we understand that, you know, for us as a team who's lost finals in the last 2 years, we've sort of got him there, you know, hoping he can help us achieve the ultimate. So there's still a bit to play out on that front.
Similar to that, you must be wrapped with, I mean, you lost some pretty important players last year. Harry Perryman, Isaac Cumming, Nick Haynes, James Peatling all departed the club. But you touched on your VFL program before, which remains in strong form. I think it's first or second on the ladder in the VFL. Are you happy with how the depth's been able to step up when it's been tested this year, given those guys went out of the side? You've had dealt with some injuries to some pretty key players across the course of the season as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's a credit to our development team who, you know, make sure that these guys underneath are bubbling away and doing what needs to be done and are ready to go. And, you know, when those players left last year, everyone knew it was going to leave a hole, but we probably knew the hole wasn't going to be as great as what everyone else thought it would be, because we knew that we had Fonte and McMullen and Harvey Thomas and Rouston and Angwin sitting there, having played good VFL footy last year, and this year when their opportunities would present, we knew they'd grab them. And we knew it might have taken half a year before some of that was actually seen. And that's probably how it's played out with a lot of those guys now coming in the back end of the year. I mean, you're never going to replace Perryman, Peatling and Cumming straight away when you're replacing them with young players who haven't played a lot of AFL footy. But now that those guys like Angwin and Fonte and Rouston are now playing regular footy, they're actually not that much of a downgrade for us. And hopefully in time they can perform at that level as well. All
right. Well, Adrian, you've been a fantastic guest on the show. These are brand new Gettable mugs brought to you by Google, so you can grab one of them. They can take back to your offices over in Docklands. But thank you so much again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
All right, now Josh, Google Gemini is our personal AI assistant, and it's a great helping hand for chatting ideas and helping answer questions. With our good friend Kaltumi away, I thought it would be a good opportunity to brainstorm. Check it out. Hi Google Gemini. If I wanted to give my friend Kaltumi a birthday present, what would you recommend I get him?
If you want to get your friend a birthday present, I'd suggest thinking about his hobbies and interests. What does he enjoy doing in his free time? Does he collect anything? Is he into sports, music, or gaming? Maybe you could get him tickets to a game or concert, or something related to his favourite hobby.
Well, he obviously likes football, but I think he really likes music more.
Okay, if he's a big music fan, you could get him tickets to see his favourite band or artist. Or, if he plays an instrument, maybe some new gear or accessories would be a good idea. You could also check out if there are any cool music-themed events happening around his birthday.
What if I wanted to really surprise him though?
If you want to surprise him, you could try to get tickets to see his favourite band without him knowing. Or, if he's mentioned wanting a specific piece of music gear, you could find a way to get it for him secretly. You could also plan a surprise party with all his friends and family.
Surprise party it is then, I reckon. Thanks, Google Gemini. There we go, surprise party. His birthday's, I think, in a few months. Got any ideas for me?
What are you getting him?
Surprise party.
Very Hank Bolger of you in that segment.
All right, let's get... Big thanks to Adrian Caruso, by the way, for coming in. But let's get to our next segment. It is Askable. That is where you ask the questions, we answer them. Get in touch with us on our Instagram page, which is @Gettable.
I'll kick us off, Riles. Now, Chris wants to know, will the Pies pick up Jack Silvani?
It is a fascinating case, Josh, because he's a free agent at Carlton, an unrestricted free agent. They can't match a bid. Look, Carlton hasn't entirely given up hope on Jack Silvani, but the widespread view, I think, over the last couple of days is that it's heading that way where he goes to Collingwood on a 4-year deal. He's got 4-year deals on the table from both Carlton and Collingwood. I reckon Kaltumi reported that 4-year deal from the Blues about 2 months ago, but he still hasn't signed it. There is an interesting domino effect in regards to Jack Silvani and if he does go to Collingwood and what it could mean. So we know that a lot of premiership players and a lot of guys at the Pies are 30 plus and out of contract. Brody Myercheck's got a 1-year deal on the table at the moment. That hasn't been upped. They haven't been budging on that. Jamie Elliott's been in career best form, but they haven't been budging on the deal that they've got on the table for him at the moment either. Darcy Cameron, his talks are still at a stalemate. He wants an extension. He's been one of the most underpaid players in the comp for the best part of 2-3 years, but Collingwood hasn't come to the table there. Jeremy Howe also has a 1-year offer on the table that he hasn't accepted yet either. There's been some frustration from the premiership players who are uncontracted at the moment around their current situations. I think the Jack Silvagni offer, and since it's come to light and the amount that they're paying him over the 4-year deal, has exacerbated that frustration a little bit over the last couple of days. And I think now, particularly with Darcy Cameron, West Coast is right in the mix for Darcy Cameron. And I think that's become a real possibility, particularly over the last couple of weeks. He's seriously considering the prospect of joining the Eagles and asking for a trade to join the Eagles at the end of 2025. I think that's become a genuine possibility now, particularly with Darcy Cameron. But clubs are certainly sniffing around the likes of Brodie Myercheck and Jamie Elliott as well, in terms of whether or not they can leverage this situation to potentially get them out of Collingwood as well at season's end. Cameron's still contracted for 2026, but given his payment structure at the moment, I think he's been looking for a higher salary for quite some time now. So yeah, West Coast, that club as well that has gone into him, and I think he's a real possibility now of potentially joining them at the end of the year.
Just on Jack Silvagni, is it a financial decision if he was to depart Carlton?
I don't think so, because I think the offers are so similar that it's probably an opportunity thing whether or not they can get his body right. I mean, Jack Silvagni's a good, reliable player. He's had a career best year in 2025 and he's played 13 games, which goes to show that his body hasn't been reliable through the most part. Whenever he's on the field, he's one of the most reliable players for Carlton. I think that might weigh into his thinking as well. Can I go to a new club, get a fresh start, potentially get my body right and play my best footy over the next 4 years?
Now, last Thursday night, you were in the rooms after Carlton lost to Hawthorn. You did speak to Charlie Curnow. The next question is from Daniel, and he wants to know, are we drawing a line under the Charlie Curnow situation?
If we had the gong out here, Josh, the gettable or not gettable gong, it would be the smallest of all gongs. I don't think Charlie Curnow's been sort of pressuring Carlton to get out. I think the way it's sort of been framed a little bit is more, look, if you were looking to trade someone to get capital back, I'd be open to the opportunity to potentially move. I don't think he's been pushing for it. It's also almost Christian Petrarca 2.0 from last year, in that his value is almost too much to be attainable while he's in contract. So what can a club like Gold Coast or Geelong or Sydney potentially offer to get him out of Carlton? I don't think they'd have the hands or the players that Carlton would want in return to get him across the line. So that's the other thing to factor into it. Full credit to Charlie Curnow though, because he came out, he was really wanting to speak to media. You could tell he was frustrated with the manner of the reports. He wanted to clear the air, and I think you could sort of sense the frustration in his voice when he did that. I think he deserves enormous praise to actually getting on the front foot and wanting to speak publicly, because sometimes these situations can drag, but I think he deserves praise for that.
Good exercise from Carlton as well, especially after a loss. Now, last Thursday, Riley O'Brien made the decision to stay. They announced that deal, that 3-year deal on Friday, and Mick wants to know, who are the Crows chasing now?
Well, clearly they're in the chase for Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera, as we mentioned at the top of the show. There was some talk over the weekend that because Riley O'Brien signed that contract, that 3-year deal, that it became a 2-horse race for Sam Draper. Either he would go to Brisbane or he would stay at Essendon, that Adelaide were out of that mix. My information is that Adelaide is still right in the hunt for Sam Draper. They want to pair Sam Draper with Riley O'Brien across the next few years, or for the next 3 years at least, given Riley O'Brien just signed that deal. So they're still in the hunt for Sam Draper. They're not out of this yet. I think Brisbane is clearly, if he was to leave, would be the front runners at the moment, but Adelaide still thinks they are a chance of potentially landing Sam Draper and still are in the mix for him. All right, Sarah wants to know, will clubs look to take advantage of Hawthorn's contract squeeze in 2026? I'll throw that one to you, Josh.
Well, clearly, Riles, they've got through quite a bit of their 2025 priorities. Lloyd Meek being the latest one. He's now locked in for 4 more years. They got Massimo D'Ambrosio. They got Josh Ward done. I can tell you that Hawthorn are now chipping away at Dylan Moore. He's not out of contract, of course, until the end of 2026, but they're working on a 4-year extension, which would take him through until 2030. Coming off an All-Australian year, last year came runner-up in the Peter Crimmins medal, become a star at that club, and of course, there's always going to be interest in him because he was delisted. He'd be a free agent for life. So to lock him in for 4 more would be a big coup. Still a big watch on James Worpel and what he does.
Yep.
I believe it's down to staying at Hawthorn or moving to Geelong.
Yeah, okay. It's going to be interesting with Dylan Moore as well, because he's an unrestricted free agent, given the fact that he was delisted. Jad wants to know, is Neil Erasmus more likely to leave or stay at Freo? You reported on Inside Trading last week of the interest in Neil Erasmus, particularly from the Western Bulldogs here in Victoria.
Well, clearly he's got a big decision to make, Riley, and Fremantle want to keep him. They've offered him a 2-year deal to stay. He's weighing up his future right now because he struggled for opportunities across his first 4 seasons at the Dockers. And you look at the demographic of their midfield mix, they're young, they're locked in for the long haul. It's tough to get time in there right now. Now, if you look at the Western Bulldogs who have interest in him, it's not easy to get in there right now, but they're planning for life after Tom Liberatore, who's about to sign a 1-year extension for 2026. Adam Treloar, there's an unknown around him and his body. So they're planning not just for next year, but for 2-3 years into the future. West Coast is the other club that's having a look at Neil Erasmus as well. We know they're in the market for young midfielders.
Yeah.
One for you. Harry wants to know, did anyone make waves from a draft perspective over the weekend? I know you spent a fair bit of time keeping a track on what was going on over the weekend.
Yeah, it was on the AFL website streaming the VFL clash because there was a couple of important names there. Zeke Ulan playing his first game of the season. He was the #1 player in Cal Toomey's Phantom Form Guide for July, and he made his season debut. Of course, he's missed a fair bit of time with that back injury. Spent a bit of time across halfback in this one, had 13 disposals, 5 marks and 5 intercepts. He was the type of prospect that we know he was going to be. He didn't really take long to settle. He took a couple of really nice intercept grabs going back as well behind the footy. You can see here getting his body in the way of that one. So he was fantastic, showed that burst, and he's got that left foot kick as well, which is so reminiscent of Errol Goulden, a player who he's been compared to a lot throughout the year. Dan Annable as well. He's another one right in the mix for that pick 1 conversation. He's tied to Brisbane's academy. And I think he was just about best on ground in this one. 28 disposals, 4 marks, 4 clearances, 4 tackles, and the goal that you just saw there. He's going to be a really great player for the Lions. Of course, they've had some success across the last couple of years in their academy. And this one, this man took my eye. He's not eligible until 2026, but Cody Walker, the Carlton father-son prospect, was absolutely dominant for the Bendigo Pioneers in this game against the Calder Cannons. You can just see his pace. This is something that we haven't seen a lot, particularly over the last Championships campaign when he played for Vic Country as a bottom major, but it's his pace and acceleration which is the real excitement, and that's what we saw on the weekend. He finished with 38 disposals, 8 marks and 12 inside 50s. He was a clear best on ground in that game. That is one to look forward to for Carlton fans in 2026. He could genuinely be the #1 pick next year.
You know, I tune in every week, and some things really stick with me. What Cal Toomey said last week around Zeke Ulan and potentially being the next captain of the Gold Coast Suns now makes a bit of sense when you consider Noah Anderson's probably got 6, 7, 8 years in the role. But I did spend some time with Zeke in May, and what an impressive teenager. I mean, Gold Coast haven't seen someone come through like this. Law student, working as a paralegal, working as an auditor. He fills every part of his week. He's finally got his body right. Can't wait to see where he lands in the end. Now, Joshua wants to know, what will the Swans do this October?
Well, they've been busy already, as he reported on the weekend. Angus Sheldrick has signed for 2 more years. You wrote that story on afl.com.au over the weekend. It was confirmed by Sydney yesterday. Look, I think they'll want to be aggressive, but it's all about finding out how. I'm still keeping them in the mix for Harry Mackay. I think it's an outside chance. I don't think they're going to be well and truly in the hunt as things stand at the moment. But I think if things play out in a certain way, they could be potentially on the card. That could be a potential move on the cards for the Swans. But they've also got some contract stuff of their own to sort out over the last couple of months of the season. Pete Laddams has a 2-year deal on the table to potentially continue backing up Brodie Grundy in that role. He's been impressive when he has played this year, but they're looking to take him off the merry-go-round because I think a few clubs might have registered an interest in Pete Laddams, but they've got a 2-year deal on the table for him. Jake Lloyd also has an offer on the table to go around again in 2026. All right, last one. Mitchell wants to know, any other updates on St Kilda's uncontracted players? We spoke about Naz clearly, but they've got a few still waiting on deals.
Well, you and I have been amazed that it took so long for St Kilda to come to the table with an offer for Max Hall, given what he's done this season, #2 rated player in the comp across the last 6 weeks. Well, they've gone from a 1-year offer to a 2-year offer. Lock him in now. He'll remain at St Kilda through to 2027. Great reward for him, given where he was taken last year and all the football he's played this year. He's had an amazing 2025. And we spoke off the top about a South Australian former first-round pick and the fear of him returning home. Well, when it comes to Mateus Filippo, he won't get to August out of contract next year. He's got that 4-year offer on the table that'll take him through to free agency. And it's closing. I think part of the reason why it's taken a bit longer to get done is the fact that he's only played 4 games this year. He's had the plantaris issue. Yep. He'll return at some level this weekend. That'll get done. There's no concern around homesickness with him. He's really committed to St Kilda, so expect that to get done in the not too distant future.
All right, love that. That has been Askable. Josh, big thanks for you. I think we won that trade, whoever we traded Cal to, but thank you for coming on the show. A big thanks to Google as well. Josh has got a busy morning because he's about to record the round ahead, which you can watch on afl.com.au later today. A big thanks also to Adrian Caruso from the Greater Western Sydney Giants for spending some of his time at the Gettable desk. We will see you same time, same place next week on Gettable.